everybody, and thanks for stopping by. This is the first in a series of videos related to building Eddie Van Halen related guitars. Now, this first series is Franky with a Tom Anderson neck on it. And if you can deal with the less than professional audio, I think you'll still get a lot of good info on this guitar, on its creation, its history, and we'll go through some of the myths and speculation and everything else that is Eddie Van Halen guitars. And if you have a guitar that you want to see built, hit me up. Contact me below, leave a message, do something, and I'll get it on the list. The next series after this one is a full 5150 full relic that turned out excellent. But for right now, enjoy this series on Franky, and you'll see what it takes to build one accurately and to pull it off the best that we can. Thank you for stopping.
Okay, so I got this really filled in last night, and some of the epoxy did not sink or flatten as much as I wanted to, so it really took a lot of work to get with a razor to get this flat again. And in doing so, I scraped some of the harder white wood, got it bright white again. So I figured this would be a good time to come back and show how to tint the wood with the liquid stain, the color tone from Stu Mac. So I am going to mix it up, we'll apply it, let it dry, and then I need to hit the surface again. So you can see there it's real white too. You know, you got some exposed wood around here. I mean, it's flat, but now some of the bright white is popped up or shown through. So we need to fix for that. Okay? So I screwed up and went too heavy or something with the epoxy and the razor technique, which happens. No biggie. I think it's important to learn how to be able to fix your mistakes, because no matter how many instructions you follow, you're going to make mistakes. I mean, that's just a fact of life. So I just put about that much water in and did one full drop. And I just want to test it, put a drop on. I can go a shade darker. Add another drop. We're going to mix that up. Let's test it again. So we don't want to just slop it on either. We want to get our brush, as they say, charged. Whatever the hell that means. Wipe some off and then start applying it. Wherever the epoxy is, it's not going to pull up the yellow or the color. So let it sit for a minute and then come back and just wipe. So I did pull off excess. And now it's pretty much back to being uniform. So we're just going to keep going here. I see a lot of people who don't stain their wood, and it ends up looking so bright white that it kind of doesn't help sell it at all. So it doesn't hurt to go over it all. If the epoxy is there, the epoxy is there, and you're not going to make it any darker. It'll wipe right up. All right, I'm gonna let that dry for an hour or so, just to be overly cautious. And then I'm gonna come back and do this epoxy on the back, which is gonna give us a nice, even, clear coat. Yeah, I'm not feeling any hairs pop up from the water that's in the stain mix, so we're pretty good. Just a little more here. A lot of wear around the edges where it ends up exposing the wood. So we're going to plan for that by making sure it's tinted. Welcome, everybody. All right, so the back is done. Nice and smooth. This is ready for the 400 grit sandpaper to just rough up the epoxy and finish it. I don't want to remove too much or any of the wood that might be exposed. You'll notice I didn't quite do every square inch of this back. I'm not too worried about underneath the neck plate. So back is done. I decided I wanted to go for a little bit more on the front since I added the dye to recolor some of the wood that got exposed from leveling the epoxy with the razor. So I'm going to do one more thin coat just to simply seal that in, and it's going to be just fine. So I ran across something that I haven't seen in a couple years. That really wide razor I showed you that's used for carpet or carpet removal. This is my old one that I used, and I tape over the blade part because I use this for when I work inside of here. So I would hold it, try to keep it as level as possible, and try to smooth out those curves. It's really hard to work in this area, and you may have to use a couple fingers with some 400 paper and just really kind of smooth it out. And it doesn't have to be perfect, doesn't have to be absolutely level. There's almost zero exposed wood in these areas, so I wouldn't worry about it all that much. You just don't want any obvious big lumps or anything. If you have big lumps, work with the razor just to take the top off of that mound and kind of get it down where it's close to being level, and then just use the sandpaper. So you want to kind of move along in that kind of route. So another thing, if you do the 3 layers on each side with the epoxy and you're doing the razor each time, you've developed a feel to really keep the razor level and to go slow and smooth, and to take off that epoxy in nice, even, real thin strips. That exact movement, which you will develop if you do 3 per side of the epoxy, is the exact, imagine this is the black and white Franky at this point, and you're trying to remove some of that white paint to see the black underneath it. And there's spots, those 2 stripes that come down right here. One is very, very exposed, where you can see the black underneath it, but you can still see the shape of the black line, or the stripe that's there. And there's some other spots as well, but it's the exact same method. So develop it while you're doing the epoxy and getting used to that, because you're going to use it again once you get the color on. Specifically after you get the white on, and you break down some of that white to show the black underneath it. And we'll do that in a few different spots. So I'm going to do one more layer of epoxy. I'm going to mix it up, get it on there thin, and let this dry. And then we're going to move on to putting the cut adhesives, which I cut on the silhouette like I mentioned. And all those files are available to Patreon members. I also do some videos for Patreon members. If you're a monthly sponsor, 10, 15, 20 bucks a month, whatever. And all that helps to go towards the next build. And with enough support, we can get into some of the bigger builds, or more difficult builds. And we'll just kind of keep this whole thing going. That's my goal. So, but sometimes people write with very specific questions. How would you do this? Or how would you do this if this happened? And I'll create a video for them, and I'll release it on the Patreon page. And anybody who's a patron can see those videos. The question pertained to the wiring that attaches to the switch that Eddie keeps right here in the post 1980 version, or 79 version. And there's a very specific direction to getting all those wires exactly wired correctly. And I laid it out in about 6 different steps. And once you get that bundle, how to place it and how to fit it just right to have it look dead on. But that just popped up. That's what made me think of it. So become a Patreon member. There's going to be a lot of cool things that come out basically just to Patreon members, because they're not long enough, or I guess interesting enough for a broader audience. So make recommendations. So I'd really like to see how they made the red and black braided strap for the 79 version of the Franky. Well, I've done 5 or 6 of those, and I'll show you how to do that. In fact, I even have the black and red ribbon here to do just that, which I gotta say is probably the most uncomfortable neck strap I've ever seen in my life. I mean, it ends up being a rope wrapped around your neck with a 10 or 11 pound guitar hanging from it. It's extremely uncomfortable. But there's a lot of little things. How to get this humbucker to sit just right. To be I use a nickel. The coin nickel. I use a nickel width between the top of the metal poles and the humbucker to underneath the strings. That's the clearance you want. And not every body is cut so that when you just drop a humbucker in, it just works perfect. And it's the right height. So there's always adjustments that need to be made. And it really goes for the 5150. Most people have the hardest time getting that humbucker to sit just right underneath the strings on a 5150. But it's also true for the Franky as well. And there's so many factors that come into play. You can't do that, set that adjustment until you've got the neck on, the neck is adjusted, the tilt everything is just perfect, exactly the way you want it, the way it needs to play, the whole thing. The Floyd is set just right, the right height, it's locked in. I'll show you how to do that as well. The whole thing. Then we focus on the humbucker.